Alright, let's not waste your time. This is split up into 4 sections: beginner, intermediate, advanced, and master. Beginner, you'll learn the ropes. Intermediate, you'll start winning your games. Advanced, you can seriously challenge even the best of players. And master, you reach the skill ceiling. Keep in mind, this video is also intended for people who have never gone through Mace PvP before, so please bear with me as I explain some of these. If you can really master all of these techniques, then you have a real shot at being the best in the world. Just an FYI, a lot of these techniques will require keybinds, which are specific keys that are bound to slots in your hotbar. I have my entire hotbar set as keybinds so that I can press them without having to scroll or move my hands. Feel free to copy these or just use whatever feels easiest or most comfortable to you. The most important thing about using hotkeys is that you feel comfortable using them. Just some good settings if you want to do PvP or Mace PvP or any kind of PvP really. You're going to want toggle sprint on with an FOV above or around 100. The toggle sprint allows you to hit them farther with each hit, and also allows you to get out of situations faster without having to mash the sprint key. And the increased FOV will allow you to see your opponent even when they're far away. The first and most basic technique is wind charging up and macing your opponent. It's just how you use a mace. You right click the wind charge and press spacebar to jump with the wind charge at the same time to get the most height. So right click and the spacebar to jump at the exact same time. Crouching while doing this even gives you more height. So if you really want to do that, you can, but most experienced players don't necessarily crouch. Being higher up with the mace when you hit them does the most damage. I think you can know that already, but many players ignore the mace's cooldown. The mace has a 1.67 second cooldown, and it'll do more damage at the maximum. Lots of beginners will just spam click the mace, but waiting for the cooldown to come can give you an edge in a fight. If you have bad timing but good aim, you want to hit them from more vertically, to give you more time to hit them before hitting the ground. But to do the most damage, you should hit them more horizontally, as you fall further and it's easier to aim. However, doing this risks you clicking a bit too late and hitting the ground instead. So it's up to you to decide which is better for your playstyle. Technique 2 involves learning how to use the shield effectively. The shield is one of the best tools in the game in the early sections of Mace PvP. Against lower skill players who don't really know how to get around it, the shield is the best way to stop them. I would not recommend having a shield in your offhand, as it's usually better to have a totem in it, just in case you get jump scared by some random guy. So you should have the shield in your hotbar as one of your slots to switch to. This is where a keybind could be really useful, to quickly switch to a shield to defend yourself. The shield is used by holding right click and looking near your opponent. Really directly at them is the best, but near your opponent they won't be able to hit you. They may try to go around your shield or behind you, but as long as you're following them and looking directly at them or near them, they cannot hit you. Another thing to keep in mind is that the shield has a tiny little delay when you right click it, where it looks like you have it up, but they can still hit you. Use the shield at the beginner level. Trust me, it's really, really good. Technique 3 is wind charge boosting with the elytra. The elytra is useful to escape dangerous situations quickly, as your hitbox becomes a lot smaller, making it harder for your opponent to hit you. You can also gain a lot of height with the elytra, which is really good in Mace PvP. Equip your elytra by right-clicking it in your hotbar. A keybind for this is recommended, or sometimes necessary for the later techniques. While sprinting forwards, jump with spacebar and press the spacebar one more time. You'll start flying or gliding. Now quickly switch to your wind charges and right click to fire one beneath you. If you time it right, you'll gain a lot of height. If you're not really moving at all after you wind charge, try firing the wind charge a tad bit later. And if you're moving super far forwards, try firing the wind charge a tad bit earlier. But the most important thing to remember about the elytra is that you take way more damage when you get hit with the elytra on, like double damage. Always remember to take it off when you're on the ground. Always. The first intermediate technique is called pearl catching. Starting from this point on, the techniques will have actual names attached to them that the community uses to label what you're doing. Also, most of these techniques will require keybinds. This is the point where it starts becoming really important that you have keybinds set. Pearl catching is the best way to gain height, as you can do it almost instantly and when you're in the air. It involves right-clicking a pearl and then immediately right-clicking a wind charge. The wind charge flies up and hits the pearl, instantly teleporting you super high up. This is done most successfully when you're standing completely still. That's because the pearl moves with your momentum and the wind charge goes perfectly straight. See, that's why sprint jumping when you throw a pearl throws it farther. Your jump momentum adds to the pearl's momentum, so pearl catching while running is practically impossible. But you can do it with smaller amounts of momentum, only if you're fast enough with the inputs. Because of this, having 2 keybinds, one for pearls and one for wind charges, is absolutely required for this technique to be pulled off consistently. You can even pearl catch while flying with the elytra, as long as your momentum is practically none, or more vertical than horizontal. It's easiest to do right after a quick turn, because it cancels all of your momentum. You can also get even more height by pearl catching after wind charging first, which adds vertical momentum to your pearl. The second intermediate technique is called elytra macing, or dive bombing. This is the way I win most of my Mace games, and I think it's really important for every single person to learn how to do this. The timing is really tight, but it's the best way to take advantage of someone because lots of people do not know how to do it. Mojang coded it so that if you fall down while gliding with the elytra, you just can't mace them at all. To get around this, Mace PvPers will take off their elytra before macing them, dealing lots of damage. In order to do this, you have to take off your elytra by right-clicking your chest plate in your hotbar, which you should have a keybind for, always. Then you need to switch to your mace, and then click them. Take a lot of time to practice the timing for it. If you're using a mace enchanted with wind burst, you can chain multiple hits in a row as you gain height after each hit. If you're moving pretty fast, it might be easier to aim at their feet, because by the time you've unequipped elytra and are ready to mace, you'll have moved a tad farther forward. With good enough aim, you'll learn how to do it on people who are flying, which is much harder, but it's practically a guaranteed totem pop or victory if you hit it. The third intermediate technique is called a wind charge cancel, which is hitting your opponent with a wind charge as they come towards you. You need to be able to get a sense of your opponent's vertical momentum as well as their distance from you, because the wind charge will take a little bit of time to travel in the air. In most cases, you want to aim a small bit below them or at their feet, as they're usually falling down towards you. You can also wind charge cancel players that are dive bombing on you, though it's much harder to aim because their hitbox is a lot smaller. The fourth intermediate technique is called lunge swapping. This is where I need to introduce a key mechanic to the more advanced techniques, known as attribute swapping. As of 1.21, item attributes have become data-driven, which changed something crucial about items. Minecraft calculates damage and attack speed one tick before it calculates the enchantments, attributes, and durability. That means during that one tick window, your attack has the damage and attack cooldown of the first item you use, and the enchantments, attributes, and durability of the second. The spear is a weapon that was also introduced in 1.21, with an enchantment called lunge, which sends you flying forward at the cost of hunger bars or saturation. If you didn't know already, hunger bars are the actual meat stick icon that shows up in the bottom right of your screen, and saturation is usually invisible unless you have a mod to show it, which you should have. However, the spear will only lunge if your spear's cooldown is completely finished, and it has way too long of a cooldown to be useful to us. But with attribute swapping, we can use the cooldown of a very short cooldown item, like a wind charge, a rocket, an elytra, or even your bare fist, with the enchantments of a spear with lunge. So by switching from a wind charge to a spear with lunge, and also clicking at the same game tick, a game tick is 1/20th of a second or 50 milliseconds, you can lunge instantly, skipping the cooldown entirely. This is actually a lot easier than it sounds. Just press your spear keybind, which is necessary for this, and click at the exact same time. When I say exact same time, I mean the exact same time. It needs to be the same tick. Immediately switch back to wind charges, and then repeat. With good enough timing, you can travel great distances and catch up to your opponents on the ground and midair. With these intermediate techniques, you can now actually start winning a lot of your Mace matches. Now we need to move on to the advanced techniques. These are the things that if you learn, you can actually compete with a lot of players. Now this is the point where I need to start talking about some things. I am not actually the best at Mace. So some of these advanced techniques, I'm actually going to be taking footage from my close friend, Lizardlong. Some of these are in his own fights, and some of these are him actually fighting against me. So this is going to be awesome. Thanks so much for allowing me to use your footage. The first advanced technique is called stun slamming. Stun slamming is when you first use the axe to disable their shield before macing them. The timing for this one is extremely tight. The most consistent way to do it is to attribute swap to the axe and attribute swap to the mace, one tick after the other. The less consistent but easier to do stun slam goes like axe keybind, then click, mace keybind, and then click. So left, right, left, right. But the optimal way to do it goes axe keybind plus the click, and then mace keybind plus the click. That way you can only do it in 2 ticks rather than 4. Extremely difficult, especially from great heights where you have less time to pull it off before you hit the ground. This technique is one many consider the separating technique, as it separates you from being good at Mace PvP and being great at Mace PvP. The second advanced technique is called sword attribute swapping, and nearly every single pro player uses it. Remember how I mentioned that the mace cooldown is like really long? 1.67 seconds? Well, by switching from the sword, which has an attack cooldown of 0.625 seconds, and has 2 more attack damage, to the mace with its wind burst enchantment, you can get the best of both worlds. A shorter attack cooldown, more base damage, and the benefits of hitting a mace hit. The only issue is, it's very easy to mess up the timing if you don't have the muscle memory for attribute swapping. Being able to do it nearly 100% consistently is necessary before implementing it into your fights. The third advanced technique is called backstabbing, and this can be done in one of two ways. The first is when you're both on the ground. If your opponent is holding a shield, you can wind charge over and behind them in order to hit them where they aren't looking. It's literally a backstab. I find the most consistent way to do this is to attempt to aim for the back of their feet, as that's usually the spot they're least likely to defend. Also, you could use the spear to get around them faster with the attribute swapping, and it feels amazing when you pull it off. The second way to pull off a backstab is with the elytra. If your opponent is holding a shield while you're dive bombing, which lots of players do, because most people do not know how to backstab, you can quickly whip around after switching to chest plate and hit them from behind like before. This is the best and the most consistent way to counter people using shield against you while dive bombing, because most people don't know how to backstab consistently, and it's almost impossible to stun slam while you're using the elytra. The fourth advanced technique is called breach swapping. As you can probably guess, it's just more attribute swapping. When you open up a Mace PvP kit, you'll notice that you're actually given two maces. One is enchanted with Windburst 1 and the other with Breach 4. Windburst is just like you're used to. Land a mace hit, you'll go even higher. But the other option is Breach, which is an enchantment that ignores armor protection points. Most players use Windburst in most situations to gain an advantage. However, Breach can still have a use. By switching from sword to the Breach Mace when fighting them in sword combat, your sword damage can have the enchantment of Breach, meaning it's like you're ignoring their armor and hitting them with a netherite sword completely naked. Not completely naked, but partially naked, I guess. With just a few crits, you could absolutely demolish a fully geared player in seconds. This is great when both players have run out of wind charges and have no way to gain height, as breach swapping gives you a major advantage when you're one-on-one. To pull off breach swapping, it's usually better to have two keybinds, one with one finger and one with the other, one for the sword and one for the breach mace. That way, instead of just using one finger to press two keybinds back and forth, you can just use two different fingers. This is great because the timing is really tight between crit chains. The fifth advanced technique is called the pearl grapple, or far pearl. In order to do this, you have to throw a pearl at a player who is either falling or flying or gliding, in order to get up to their height and mace them from up there. The goal actually isn't the mace hit, as it actually doesn't do very much damage. The real goal is what happens afterwards. The mace hit will send you upward, giving you more height and placing you at a very advantageous position. It's always better to have more height in Mace PvP. The sixth and final advanced technique is called the spear double pop. By offhanding the spear and holding right click, you can actually do a lot of damage to your opponent just by simply falling on them. This is because the spear damage is calculated based on relative motion towards your opponent. Falling is really just fast relative motion towards your opponent, so the spear does a lot of damage. You can either offhand the spear while holding right click and left click with mace when you're looking at them, or just switch to the mace to click on them when you need to, which is much harder but has less risk of missing and dying without a totem. Now we need to move on to the master techniques. Once again, these are techniques that if you really master and are better than everyone else at it, you have a real shot at #1 in the world. Now, before we start, I need a quick disclaimer. These are actually techniques that I cannot do consistently. Maybe I can pull off some of them in practice, maybe 2 in a row, but I'm just not the most knowledgeable person on these topics. So if you want to learn from people who really know what they're doing, you have to click on the links below in the description. Trust me, they're a lot more helpful than I am. I'm just putting my information all in one place. The first master technique is elytra stun slamming. I mentioned this before. It's exactly what it sounds like, combining a dive bomb with a stun slam, except the timing is so much harder this time. You have to start by taking off your elytra and switching to your chest plate, and then you have to perform a stun slam while you're moving at the speed of your elytra dive bomb. Because of this, most players actually just do backstabbing instead, because it's a lot more consistent at the higher levels, and a lot of people just don't have the reaction time to be able to defend a backstab. The second master technique is the diagonal pearl catch. This is a pearl catch, but done diagonally to gain more horizontal distance. The reason this is so difficult to do is that instead of just shooting the pearl and wind charge together, where they're on the same line, you actually have to account for the gravity that pulls the pearl downwards. So first, when you throw the pearl, you need to look a little bit below before you shoot your wind charge. It's extremely difficult to get the situational memory for, and it's only a slight benefit in certain situations. The third master technique is known as shield draining. Now, this one is really infamous online because it was most famously performed by a now exposed cheater, or some people believe that he's a cheater, that went by Rapture in the community. By doing something called drag clicking, where you drag your finger across your mouse in a way where it clicks really fast, you can reach extremely high clicks per second, and the game will take durability off of your opponent's shield for each hit that happens. An opponent without a shield is just a sitting duck if you have the right aim, but Rapture ended up having some controversy. and there's really no way to know if a real human could pull this off. The fourth master technique is known as the Mace D-tap. This was recently discovered by the YouTuber that I've mentioned in the description. It should also be in the top right of your screen. This is performed only when your opponent is extremely low health. You first glide down towards them. You click them once with a breach mace to pop their totem, because they're already low on HP. Then you perform a regular dive bomb to kill them again. Now, because they're out of their totem, they'll actually die here. D-tapping is a term derived from crystal PvP, which is short for double tapping. You tap them twice, once to pop their totem, and a second time to finish them off. This is one of the only techniques on this list that I have never performed successfully, even in practice. The fifth and final master technique is called elytra preservation. When playing in an actual fight, you'll find that the item that breaks first tends to be the elytra. When your opponent has an elytra and you do not, usually you're just a sitting duck if your opponent knows how to backstab. In order to prevent this, Masters of the Mace will unequip their elytra in 1-second intervals, as elytra durability is based on the time spent flying, not the distance flown, and ticks down once each second. Essentially, if you fly for less than a second every second, the game doesn't take any durability from your elytra. In order to do this, you have to unequip your elytra by right-clicking your chest plate in your hotbar, and then instantly right-click again to re-equip it, and then press spacebar to start gliding again. You need to do that once every single second. It's really difficult, and I do not recommend implementing it until you really know how to do it well. Now, some of you might be wondering, what about rocket macing? Don't worry, I'll explain that too. Rocket macing is actually something that I really enjoy doing, and I actually learned it before I learned how to do the regular elytra mace. There are 4 different kinds of rocket macing, and each one gets progressively harder. The first one, super simple. You just put on your elytra, start gliding, fly up, take off your elytra, and just fall. Now for the other 3, you're going to require something a little different. Your rockets need to be flight duration 3 rockets. That way you get the rocket boost throughout the entire elytra mace, and it does more damage that way. In order to do this, you need to equip your elytra, fly up, and then instantly turn around towards your opponent. Then you need to perform an elytra mace with the boost. So the timing is going to be a little bit different. You need to learn how to take off your elytra, switch to mace, and click extremely fast to be able to pull this off. Now the third way is just a slight modification of this. You need to fly up, but instead of just turning around, you instead take off your elytra, turn and look at them, put your elytra back on, and then glide. The rocket actually maintains the boost throughout that takeoff. This way you can turn and look at them faster without having to waste some of your boost going horizontally. It also just feels a lot cooler. Now the final and most useful one actually requires a different wind burst. So for this one, you will actually want wind burst 3. It's usually the best and most helpful. For this one, you will never be looking away. You will simply fly up first to start the combo, turn around, fly at them, take off your elytra, and do a mace hit. But this time, you'll fly up vertically because of the wind burst. Now, you just have to re-equip your elytra, rocket at them, and then do another mace hit. This is the kind of thing Wembu does on all those guys. I wouldn't necessarily recommend learning rocket mace before you learn how to elytra mace, but I will say it helps a lot. My aim with regular elytra macing on the regular kit on PvP Club is absolutely better because I did the rocket macing first. Alright, and that's about it for today. I know I forgot one thing, which is wall purling. So if you go up to purl above a wall that your opponent is under, you can actually gain a lot of height and catch them off guard. It's really powerful. But to be honest with you, most of the other techniques that I haven't covered are just small little things that don't necessarily matter as much and aren't going to determine the victory or not the victory. Basically, you're going to be really, really good if you learn all of these anyway. And obviously at that point, you might as well go find another video and learn something better. But there's some important things I need to talk about. First of all, down in the description, I linked all of the clips and the videos that I took clips from. I also link Lizard's description, and there's also 2 things in there that are really important. Number 1, I have the server IP for the server that me and Lizard play on, and most people play on. It's PvP Club, and it's the most popular PvP server. You should be playing on there. And once again, I have the world download for Theobald's PvP map. It's the most popular PvP map. It's great. It has all the functions, everything you could want. I also linked the YouTube video to the tutorial that you need to be able to install it and add it onto your computer. When you're playing Mace, something you really got to remember is that each of your opponents plays very differently. That's something you're really going to notice when you queue some randoms online. Every single person will play differently. They'll play with shield, some will play Some will think they're just an airplane. Some will pearl a lot and grapple. Some just can't even elytra mace at all. So learning what their weakness is and taking advantage of it with different techniques, this is why this video exists. So if you need to come back, please come back. Timestamps are in the description. And most importantly, please subscribe. I'm asking you. I'm a student, and this took me a long time to edit. I can't lie. This took me maybe 2 weeks to edit, I think. And it's taking forever. So I'm a student, and I just don't have the time. It's testing season, so thanks, and bye.